This episode is brought to you by Leo Bato and Associates, ang realtor na patok.
So I moved here, would have been a little over 16 years ago now, from Wisconsin. And even though I was playing live gigs and, that sort of thing in all genres of music, this being a session player and being creative in that aspect and having the ability to play to a click track or in a studio and kind of know what microphones work with drums and how to tune drums, and that was just always something that I loved and came somewhat naturally to me. And I wanted to get into the session scene here in LA, which is pretty much impossible to do if you're just coming off the boat from wherever it is, right? It's a very hard scene to crack into because there's so many amazingly talented musicians and drummers and percussionists. So I was like, what's a cheat code to get into that world? So I did research, and I had some friends recommend me, like, well, there's these places there, they cartage and teching. I was like, okay, I got it. That's not really something I ever saw myself doing necessarily, but let me check it out. So I sent out a resume to all of them, and I went and visited them, and I went over. It's Drum Doctors is here in Glendale, so I went over to Drum Doctors, and I met Ross. Yeah, it would have been like 16 years ago.
Wow.
And we hit it off right away. I said the right things, thankfully, and he likes people from the Midwest especially. We tend to be hard workers and dependable.
Yeah.
So Midwest is like, Wisconsin,
Working
Michigan,
class, yeah.
Working class. So he was like, okay, cool, let's give it a shot. And it worked out. And I mean, that's...
So in other words, the interview went something like nerd talk.
Yeah.
Gear talk. As minuscule and as articulate as you can possibly go.
Yeah. Which is exactly what it was. And we just hit it off, and I respected him, and I didn't know a lot about him. I'd never heard of him. It wasn't something I'd ever, I was like, cartage. I didn't know that word cartage, which means just like transporting equipment for people. And once I realized what drummers were part of the Drum Doctor family, it was Josh Freese, Jim Keltner.
Nice, no?
Abel Boreal Jr.
Wow.
The list goes on and on.
Were you familiar with them at the time?
I absolutely was. The specific session drummers, especially Jim Keltner.
Oh, yeah.
He is probably one of the greatest drummers of all time. And most people don't know who he is. But he's
one
been
of the most recorded drummers. Also.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So the fact that I was like, wait, I get to meet these guys and watch them in the studio and learn from them and learn from Ross what I didn't know, which that's the thing is like, you never know what you don't know. So I'm always absorbing. And the fact that I had that opportunity was amazing to me. So I jumped in, and
plus it gets your foot in the door.
And that's what it got my foot in the door. You get to meet engineers, producers, artists, everybody that is in that world. And the fact that you have Josh Freese and Abel Boreal Jr. and Jim Keltner as mentors and friends, and I mean, it's priceless.
Who was the first drummer you cartaged?
It was I don't remember who the drummer was. I couldn't tell you his name, but it was for an artist, Ryan Adams.
I know Ryan.
So
Adams.
it was a session for Ryan Adams at Sunset Sound in Hollywood. I remember
Ryan was there.
Ryan, it was.
Wow.
I mean, again, I wish I could remember the drummer's name, but it was his drummer. It wasn't like a session drummer. It was his drummer on the gig, and it was a 1980 Gretsch maple kit, USA maple.
Who requested it? The producer, the engineer, the drummer, or you guys, or Ross just brought it in and said that?
Usually, sometimes it'll be requested of like specifically they want, but most of the time it's we want this kind of a sound, give us what will get us this sound. So they're asking for that advice. So that's what it was, and Ross was like, this is the kit. Zach, take it over there. Maybe 4 or 5 snare drums, specific cymbals that are going to work for the session. And
who tunes the drum kit? You or them?
This episode is brought to you by Leo Bato and Associates, ang realtor na patok.
We tune it, yeah. So it would have been Ross and myself are the two primary drum tuners at Drum Doctors.
So can you imagine, like, tell me if I'm wrong or right, when you go into a studio, all these artists, producers, engineers, musicians are there. You're setting it up, and these are not snobbish people. You're having conversations with them while you're setting up.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're building your network.
I mean, yeah, it was. It's not like you go in going, oh, I'm gonna schmooze with these cats. It's like it's just an organic thing where you go in and like sometimes you run into people that are difficult, but usually everybody's really nice and welcoming and like people want to teach and show, because they're proud of what they're doing. So it makes it really easy to be like, oh, why do you do that with that microphone on that drum, or why do we have the drums in this part of the room, or watching a drummer with these parts. Oh, how come for your chart? I see you made your chart in a specific way. Why do you do that instead of like writing it all out, and like all the little things of being a professional in that setting, and the communication and how to be cool and like the delicate like eggshells that you can walk on to make sure you don't rock the boat. And a lot of it is just being aware. And
so pretty much you were paying your dues again.
Oh yeah, I've moved more drums and equipment and tuned more drums than anyone can imagine. I mean, Ross obviously has me beat on this one, but I'm not in as much as I used to be. But when we were really busy, we were doing 3 or 4 sessions a day with huge, massive artists. Like, just going back to the Grammys this year was like I went through like the top 10, like all the winners. And we did all those albums. We were the drums and provided, which is a small part of the process, but it's still something that we're proud of. And you're like, we're on those recordings with our drums and we tuned it, and so.
When did you start thinking, I'm not just going to cartage drums. I'm going to be the guy behind the drum kit.
Like, it was never a goal to, it wasn't like I enjoyed hauling equipment, but it was definitely, I knew that if I kept working at it and I kept, like I said, like learning in school, it's the same thing. And I applied myself, I have the goal of transitioning to being a known studio drummer and getting the call, and I knew it was going to take time, but it was worth it. And you're learning through the whole way. So it was like, it's just like going to school. I'm like, okay.
So there's patience, there's a process, everything.
Oh yeah.
So you were just reapplying the mindset.
Same mindset, that exact thing. Yeah, full circle. Yeah, obviously. Just the same thing I was applying in college. It was the same thing out here.
So how long after joining the Drum Doctors did a break come your way?
I worked really hard and I jumped in and I just started meeting people. It was probably a year where then I was starting to get, it's kind of new people on, Zach plays drums and he knows how to tune drums. I was like, okay, let's bring him in, And
how did it feel?
I mean, it was exciting. Like no
nervousness, nothing?
No, I've never had the nervousness. It's always just been excitement and like a challenge. I like accepting challenges and getting to work with people. So, and the only time I've ever been nervous is like when I would be back in Wisconsin and my mom would be like, "Oh, Zach, hey, Aunt Carol and Aunt Adele wanna, can you play your drums for them? Can you go upstairs and play your drum kit for them?" And I'd be like, "I don't want to, Mom. I don't want to play for my family," or like at a family event, like, "Oh, your father's gonna play some songs for the family. Can you play drums? Your grandma wants to see you play, Zach." And I'd be like, I don't want, like, playing to my family and a smaller, like 10 people is the only time I've ever like, I don't like this. But, but other than that, I love it.
You have siblings?
No siblings, only child.
Oh, yeah, you got to play for the family.
Yeah. Oh, no, I knew I had to. I just didn't want to,